Welcome to the Eyes Up Mindset podcast, where we explore what it means to grow daily and find our best in every aspect of life.
Welcome back to another episode of the Eyes Up Mindset podcast. I'm John Shirky here with my friend and my co-host. It's been a while, but Jamie Wagner, how you doing today?
Great, man. If you're watching on YouTube, check out John's shirt, Solem Strong. A few episodes ago, our friend Trevor Solem was on, and John is rocking the shirt today that you can get if you want. Check out our Facebook group where you can see the link to get one of those shirts to support Trevor and his family as we do a benefit for him and his second battle with cancer. And I don't know, I was just thinking about that. We often ignore the things that we could be giving you, like in our businesses, in our offerings. And I'm just like, man, we can pitch something as cool as this Solem Strong shirt today.
Oh, and I think that leads us to our conversation that we were, again, just having. But it's, we are continuing to try to figure out who we are as a podcast, who we are as a partnership, who we are individually in the work that we're doing. And I think it's important conversations like the ones we've had the last few weeks have really, not only in the numbers, right, of viewers and listeners, but I think for us individually have really filled us to the point where it has challenged us to grow and change, in our personal lives. And we've certainly gotten a lot of feedback from other people about how important the things that we're doing have been for them recently, for sure.
And you said it just a little bit ago before we press record, like our challenge to the listeners and to ourselves is to constantly be in this battle that is reflection, feedback, understanding that we have to assess where we are at many points in this process. That, I think one of, as athletes, like let's just take athletics, for example, when we're in high school or in college and we're competing in athletics, like we have these inflection points that automatically make us assess. We played a game, we competed in a competition, whatever it was. And now we look back and we say, how did it go? Right. I think for businesses, we get these quarterly sort of reports sometimes, or we have these large group meetings, or we have these one-off professional development things where we stop and say, how is it going? We need to do a better job as a culture in our business, in our podcast as well, about having these consistent conversations, these consistent assessments and reflections about how is it going? Where are we going? And I think that's the challenge in the podcast today for us, is to be able to be transparent about some of that for the listeners, but also to show what that transparency might be in your own experience.
Yeah. And I think just given the time and place we are in our world, Jamie, I was talking to Hannah last night, and she said there's some studies and some projections out there that, like, in the next 2 years, 40% of people are going to quit their jobs and do something else.
Yeah.
Based on kind of our last year and a half. And I, as I started to reflect on that and think about that, it's a little bit what we're talking about today in terms of what does it mean to live with an eyes up mindset, or to live eyes up, right? It's to live with intention, to know where you're going, what is of value in your life, right? And to set goals and get better every day. And when she shot that number at me, it was like, man, that seems really high. But then at the same time, it was like, well, we've all gone through this event in our world that has forced us to think about and do things differently. Yeah. And when you are forced to think about and do things differently, then you get to choose. Am I going to go back to what it was? Or do I take what has happened, learn, grow, get better?
Well, and I think like the Trevor podcast, the JP podcast, the last podcast we had, both of those people were faced with an event that then shaped and changed the way that they thought about life. And like, we are all, like many of us have children that that moment and the ensuing, for me, year and a half has been transformative in terms of the way that I think about the world. And, whether it's a diagnosis or something great, like,
well, I think about the Grace Stayberg, trying to break a world record, climbing up a mountain in 24 hours straight. Like, that's another event or inflection point that changes the way you see the world and how you impact it.
and, I think about her response was gratitude, right? Just tremendous gratitude. And how often, like, what wisdom from a 19-year-old, right? How often do we meet an event that changes our perspective with disappointment or disillusion? And when we should just be grateful, if 40% of people leave their jobs, like, let's just say that that's true, like, what it's meaning is that they should be grateful about the reality that they realize this isn't what I want to do and who I want to be anymore, and that's kind of forced me to reflect about, we moved, we're in a new place, and you guys did recently as well. And if you listen to us for the next 3 years, you'll probably hear both of us move again or whatever it might be, because we're a little bit unsettled in our putting down roots sort of world. But I've been faced with the reality that you need to make new relationships and have new friendships. And at 36 and being a man, we've talked about this, I think back to the Seth Olson episode way back, like, it's hard to make friends as an adult male, and it's hard to make. And I started to think, well, why is that for me personally? Why is that? And I struggle with small talk. I doubt anybody listening has figured that out yet, right? That I struggle with small talk. No, it's the most obvious thing ever. If you listen to the podcast, I'm the one who wants to, like, dive in right now. Let's go. And I do that in relationships. And I think it's off-putting at times for somebody to be like, somebody's telling me, hey, where do you live? Whose house is it? What are you doing? Like, I'm like, these are the facts. Let's talk about the facts, but then let's go there. Like, let's have some real conversations. And I don't know that everybody wants to do that all the time.
I don't think they want to do it all the time externally. I think people have a desire inside to have real meaningful connection. And I think, especially with guys, there is a period of life that does not lend itself to that. You're growing your career, you're growing your family, you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And yes, they have connection. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, and certainly neither one of us is wanting to put that perception out there. But, I just think that there is a part of all of us that craves it. We talk about it a lot, where it's like, what is the purpose of this life? Is to connect with other people and to pour into people. And then we get back infinitely more than we ever give. But it's to be in community, right? And to help each other be the best versions of ourselves. And how do we do that? And so this whole conversation started about with looking back over the last year plus, now 62 episodes, 61 episodes, whatever it is. What is the purpose of our podcast? What does it mean to live Eyes Up? What is an Eyes Up mindset? Because for us, that has evolved and changed. We began as we're going to work with high school teams and athletes about mindset, about performing on the field, and some character development, right? Yeah. And it has morphed throughout time. And now certainly that's a part of what we do still. Yeah. But I think there's maybe a grander vision isn't the right word, because it's there's a bigger picture though. I think that.
Well, and I've been forced with, like, through events that have happened with us and with my family, and like, just like, what is my why, right? What is my purpose in all of this? And it has changed to some degree. I think about the podcast, and the podcast was really the offspring of something that we couldn't control, right? This event that was, life has shut down. Right. So how do we continue to do the thing that we love, which is to potentially impact people towards change, right? And let's do it online for the world to listen to. But the podcast has morphed into this thing that I, especially given the last couple episodes, that to me and my purpose in doing this is to help, right? Is to give people the opportunity to hear conversations that are going to shape the way that we think about something, right? And the tremendous courage of some of the people we've had on the podcast to share not only their story, but to share how they have chosen to shape their story, right? I think about, John Peter, the most recent episode, and just saying, like, I am who I am because of this diagnosis. Like, I am who I am because of my bipolar. Like Trevor saying things like, it's day to day and I'm just going to be here and be present. And like, he texts me all the time, like, hug your daughter, kiss your wife, like, be reminded of how good it is to just have these things in your life, because they're not guaranteed. And, for many other guests who have shared who they are and to put it out there, like, that's a gift. And I don't care how many listeners or views or whatever we have for the sake of our, like, the business end of the podcast. What I care about is that other people are hearing these things so that they can be challenged in the same way that I am.
Yeah. And I think when we were reflecting on that in our personal conversation about why is it that some episodes of the podcast go there and why is it that some don't? And I think both of us have, and I think it's a natural human reaction, is when we don't have a personal close connection, there's some discomfort asking the next question, right? The next level of what is the big why? How did you create this thought, this belief about yourself, and then transferring that to the team or to your athletes or to your business employees, whatever it is. And I think, again, so as we continue to figure this out and navigate, we certainly, we both love sports. We work in sports. We work with athletes and coaches. But I think we're going to continue to find people that have these events, these challenges, these stories that are willing to go and have real conversations about what it is, how things have shaped their perspective on life, right? Because that is really what aligns with what we're trying to do in terms of living eyes up, is seek solutions, get intentional, right? See the situation for what it is and make the most out of it, rather than, talk about the records and statistics and the small talk stuff that you talked about earlier.
But it's also, what I've been so encouraged by is the hope that comes out of these conversations, right? That they may be heavy and they may be challenging as we reflect, right? To say, that's hard to hear, like, at different points, all of us have been in tears, right? But there's also just tremendous, like, lightness that follows from them, right? I think of, hope is just the word that I hear in my head when I think about those things. I am hopeful around the battle in our culture around mental health. I am, like, because people are willing to have those conversations. I am hopeful for, young people to continue to push the barriers of what is possible. Sam Byer hits 7 home runs in a game. Grace Staberg climbs Mount Everest twice in the same day on skis. Like, these people are driving our species. Like, I know that's like a crazy thing to say, right? But when we pull upward, right, when we have this creative tension of moving our expectations higher, the emotional tension increases also. But when we can take the pressure off because someone else has done it before, it changes what's possible for everyone. And that sounds Pollyanna, and it sounds like the most I don't know, pie in the sky, naive thing in the world. But I genuinely believe that. And I hope that you guys as listeners believe it too, that when we connect with what is possible from others, we are showing ourselves what we can do as well.
I think the word you used was tension, right? And I was thinking about basic relaxation techniques, right? Where you talked about a lightness, a weightlessness or a weight that comes off after doing things. And I was thinking about the muscle relaxation activities where you're tensing your muscles and then you're releasing. And in the moment, the tension is sometimes uncomfortable. It's hard. It's difficult. And then there is that release, right? And I think the other thing we talked about was, how do we go first in those conversations? How do we make it okay for people to go there? We were talking about small talk and meeting people and making new friends. And some people want to go there. I've had so many conversations the last 10 days playing in golf tournaments, meeting different people, just about, hey, what does your hat mean? What does that mean to you? Right. And now that opens a door for me to be able to say, this is what it means to me. This is the work that we're trying to do. And almost every time I have a family member, I've had this is what's going on with me. And there's an immediate connection for people that I have met just now, and I think it's wearing it outwardly. One, it keeps me accountable. And two, it gives people the opportunity to say, what does that mean? And create a connection.
And how do we, yes, you can order hats and you can order shirts and you can find stuff on our website, eyesupmindset.com. But how do we do that without a shirt on? How do we do it without a hat? How do we let people know? And I just shared my struggle in making new friends and new connections. Like sometimes I go there way too fast and people are like, whoa, man, I just met you. Slow down. I don't know you like that. And I think that that's true. But as coaches, as leaders, how do we let the people in our communities and our organizations know that they are safe to do those things also? How do they understand, and that's the thing that has come out of so many of these conversations, is that coaches are trying to build communities in their programs to say, you are safe here to say the things you need to say, so that, right, we have an ulterior motive as coaches, which is unfortunate, because like we think that if you are safe, you perform better. But how do we say, I don't care how you perform. I don't care what the outcome is. I just want you to be safe to say these things, because deep down, I know this to be true. I know it. Jamie Wagner understands this deeply in his soul, right? I'm sorry for using the third person, but that when we have safety, when we have security, when we can talk about these things for real with other people, our performance improves no matter what we're doing, right? It's not the ulterior motive that's the driver. It's the understanding that when we let that tension release, if we have high goals and high expectations, no matter what, like if there's tension up here, it's going to pull us up. It's going to bring us higher. So how do we release the tension? We have to have a place where it can go, right? We have to have an opportunity for it to go somewhere. I don't know of any other word to say. It's just, that's it.
No, it's the release, right? And I think that's throughout our conversation this morning and the last few days and the last year about what this is. It's, let's have real conversations about what impacts our ability to perform athletically, but bigger than that, it's as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as an employee. And it may look and feel like we're talking about sports all the time or part of the time. And I do think that's an incredible reflection of life, but that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is grow one another. That's how this started, Jamie, is us having conversations about how do we get better? How do we grow each other? And I think that's the challenge for us too, is when we know there are people that we maybe haven't met before or that we or don't have a personal connection to, for us to push into that tension as well and to give them an opportunity to have that space to be safe.
Well, and to
just talk
lay
about-
down whatever pride we might be bringing to the conversation about what is uncomfortable for us,
Right.
because that's our job. That's what we're here to bring to you guys as listeners,
Yeah. And I think that's when I think about the takeaway for my last 2 weeks or 10 days or whatever, and I knew this, I know this, it's just a reminder. It's a 2x4 across the head sometimes where it's like, hey, remember that you going first creates that opportunity for other people. Right. And I think that was your challenge just a minute ago to people, is how do we do that? How do we create those safe environments? Is you go first, be vulnerable, be courageous, share something, be transparent. And this isn't, hey, air all of your dirty laundry sort of things, because all it takes sometimes is wearing a hat.
And to be able to say, I struggle with that too. I struggle with that too. And just to say, hey, I was reflecting on our thing and I didn't do it well enough.
Mm-hmm.
I let us down, that is powerful.
So Jamie, episode is coming out. You're going to hear this on July 5th, right after 4th of July, Independence Day. Hopefully you guys are out spending time with your families, taking the day off to reflect, to spend time doing what you value and what really matters to you. But Jamie, I know you had some thoughts or some things that have been on your heart in terms of kind of the day and the time of year we're at.
Well, it's not about the freedom that is provided via this country or whatever it is. It's just about this idea of independence.
Not a political podcast.
Yeah, not at all. But just like this idea of what does independence mean, and what are we tied to? What are we beholden to? And I struggle with the clock. I'm constantly looking at, are we on time? Is this the thing? I struggle with my phone sometimes, right? Where it's, I feel like I have to go and check something, right? That it's calling me almost, I feel beholden to my email on occasion. And that is not liberty. That is not freedom. That is not independence. That is a dependence on something. And I would challenge us as we hear this around this time of year. It's important to have these inflection points, right? To be reminded of things on occasion. And what are we giving up our independence for at times is a really powerful question. And I've just been reflecting on it. I read a book called The Calendar of Wisdom by Leo Tolstoy, which it's just a daily, 6 or 7 pieces of information that he has collected over the course of his life. And one from the other day says, if you feel that you are not free, look for the reason inside of you. It's like we create the barriers.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, as you were talking about those things, those aren't the actual things, right? It's a belief sometimes that we're beholden to.
Yeah.
It's a belief that I'm not good enough. I can't figure it out. I don't know that already.
Well, and
what do other people think?
I think about the clock thing, the time thing for me. We were, no offense to my family, but we were always late when I was a kid. We were always waiting, always waiting for something to leave, or always wait. And then we'd show up late for things. And it's just I'm tied to that belief that people thought different of us because we were late. Right.
And it's so funny because we have our own experiences. I was exactly the opposite, where growing up, we were always 15 to 20 minutes early. We were never late, but that created some anxiety and some tension on the other end of it, where it was like, we have to get out the door. And it created this inflexibility sometimes where, and so now I think, as we often do, go the opposite, where there's times where I don't think about it as much.
Yeah.
And there's times where it comes back, right? And it's
For sure
frustrating and it's whatever.
But when we examine our thoughts, we start to deal with a moment that maybe caused that thing. And I don't know. I was very much taken by this thought of, where do we sacrifice our independence? Like, where do we give away for no good reason the thing that is so valuable, like this amazing gift that we have, that is freedom to choose and design our own lives. We sacrifice it because there's a golf tournament on TV and I want to watch it, and then we don't even have TV, so
makes it tough.
Well, it directs your choices, right? These things direct the choices that you make. And if you want to take back control, you may have to sacrifice. If you want to take back freedom and independence, like, you may have to sacrifice this thing that isn't necessarily that important.
Well, and I think that's an incredible reminder, Jamie, that look within. And whether we're talking about independence or your performance or your relationships, it's look within first, right? Figure out what you are contributing to the situation, the event, the world, the culture, and figure out if that's what you want to be, or if that's the most valuable or healthiest, and in terms of you pushing that forward and growing that thing.
Well, you said grow each other, right? How do we grow each other? We got to grow ourselves first, right? We got to grow where we're planted, and then we can give shade. We can give, we can be a place for pollination. I don't know. That's a ridiculous analogy, but it's also not. So.
All right, Jamie, awesome to have the conversation with you. I'm excited to continue going.
Yeah.
Continue having conversations with people about their why, about what is important, and having difficult conversations that move us as a community forward, as an Eyes Up family. So we're going to end. I think let's end with another plug for Solem Strong. Again, if you haven't listened to the episode, go listen to Trevor's episode. It's 3 episodes ago now, something like that, but incredible story. But it would mean a lot to us. We don't do ads. We don't ask for money. We don't do anything like that. This is the one time, right, where it's like, hey, if you're going to do something, go support Trevor and his family. You can Venmo, you can order t-shirts, you can provide stuff for the benefit, whatever. If you have any inkling that you want to do that or get involved, send us an email, text, whatever. We're easy to get a hold of. But yeah, I don't know. That's what I got for today, Jamie.
Absolutely.
Good to see you. Keep up the good work. Someday we're going to touch base on the running, but not today.
Luke is going to kill me if I don't say this. Update on the running.
Update on the running.
Almost 160 miles, just over halfway. Going to crush 200. I crushed 200.
Nice. Good work. Very proud of you.
Thanks.
And as always, live eyes up.